Control yourself. Don't drink too much. Don't talk too much. Don't look that way. Don't stare at that boy.
Welcome, everyone, to Over It. It's Dr. Gilman, Donna, and my very, very good friend, Kimberly Christensen. And I just want to say welcome to Over It.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I'm excited to talk to you, and maybe we could just create a setting here. So I'm in Western Mass. You're on the Cape.
Yeah.
That's Cape Cod for people who are not in the know. And you've lived on full time on the Cape for how many years?
Well, we moved here in 96. So I don't know the math, 27 years or so.
Yep. And you're a real estate agent.
I am. I work for William Ravis on Cape Cod, beautiful Cape Cod. And I love to find people houses on Cape Cod because it really is just such a awesome spot. It just really is. I love it.
There is
I love the
something
beach.
magical
Makes me
about the
happy.
Cape. Yeah, there's something magical about the Cape. If people haven't been there, there is something about it, right? It's such a
And I
unique
mean, I do
place.
a couple walks, I do like 3 days a week. I do my walk. It's about a mile to the beach. And every day I get down to that beach, it is like my heart just goes. So
Yeah.
I figure I got to bring that to other people, because it
And you
does,
always
every day
post your
looks different.
pictures, right? You post your
I
beach pictures almost every day on Facebook, and I love it. I feel like I'm
yes,
there with
yes.
you. And
And it just always looks different.
it always looks different. And we know each other through my partner and your very old and dear
Mhm.
friend. And you all
Yeah.
went to college together, right? That's how you know
Hmm.
each other, college
Yeah.
gymnastics. And weirdly
And
enough,
Steve and Ozzy were roommates.
and your husband and my partner were roommates, and you were all gymnasts. And I
Yep.
also went to UMass but I didn't know any of you at that time. Like we were all
Isn't
there at
that
the same
funny?
time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And,
funny.
and I didn't know any of you. But anyways, we all went to the same school, UMass Amherst. You guys were all gymnasts, Division 1, right? Like
Yeah,
hot little
that's right.
shits.
Yeah.
Yep. And I met you through Ozzy, and I felt like I just completely connected with you. Like from the minute I met you, I was like, oh, yes, because I think you were one of the first friends of his that I met. And it really kind of like solidified things even more for me because I was like, she's awesome. Like if somebody's friends with this
Right.
person, like, and you and I think quickly realized we had some things in common. I think the
Yeah.
first thing we
Right.
bonded about was our boys.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think at the time, I'm trying to remember now, 4 years ago, Nate was how old?
Oh, I don't even know. He might have just been in middle school at the
Middle
time, I
school.
think. Yeah. Yeah.
And now mine's in middle school, and
Hmm.
Nate's done with school.
Yep. Yep. He finished. Yep. He
Both of
graduated.
our
Good for
both of
him.
our kiddos have had a challenging journey. Like we've had a challenging journey with these kids in terms of pretty complex, medical pictures and just sort of
Yep.
what you go through, the trials and tribulations with a kid who has complex medical issues that don't like disappear quickly over time. And I feel
Right.
like that was
Right.
our first sort of like bonding point where I feel like we just both
Yeah. It
opened
was a
right
definite
up.
connection.
Definite connection. I mean, is there anything in particular you remember about like those conversations or any like takeaways? I mean, for me, it was like incredibly validating because I don't, in my personal life, very often get to speak to another mom who has had that depth of like complexity with a kid's health and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
level of stress. Not to compare apples and oranges, everybody has their own journey,
Right. Right.
but I felt like you understood.
Yeah, yeah. I think for me, it's we're so used to kids, people have kids, and most of the time they don't share any issues, and like you feel like you're kind of the only one who has this, and because I mean, majority of the kids, don't have major medical issues. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes you think nobody else kind of deals with it. And kind of sometimes when somebody shares something, I think it just opens up your heart a little to be like, okay, there's people out there who are dealing with stuff. Not that you don't think that people are dealing with stuff, but sometimes you tend to think like, oh, everyone's kids just do whatever and it's all good. You know what I mean? But I think the connection there of somebody else, and you think, oh God, you remember those times so well, like I think you had mentioned about a seizure, because that's what Nate had, seizure disorder, epilepsy, but they renamed it because it had such a stigma to it.
Right.
And you had mentioned he had had a seizure, not that he had
My son
epilepsy, but
had, right. My
uh,
son had a seizure,
yeah,
right.
yeah. And I mean, I think, and it just kind of brings it back, but it makes you also open your heart to the person you're speaking with, to know that, the trauma that goes through that, and to really form that like open heart, open hands, to say, I'm here for you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And the scariness of it,
The scariness of it, and that it can go on for years and years before you have resolution and you really can start to see that child, thrive in their own way. And I mean, in terms of what other people deal with, I mean, yeah, everybody goes through stuff with their kids, but there's stuff and then there's stuff, the life-threatening stuff is like in its own category. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
we
right.
know parenting is not for the faint of heart, but when you spend those nights and days and weeks in the emergency room and in recovery centers with your kid, like that's a whole nother ball of wax.
Yeah, yeah. And I felt with we Nate pretty much had his seizures started when he was not quite 2. And we really didn't get him under control to that second brain surgery, which he was almost 10. So it was a long road. And doctors don't know that much. They really, like, the neurologist. I mean, we're talking Children's Hospital, Boston, best
Yep.
place in the world. But those doctors will defer to you. Well, what do you think? Because every seizure it's almost like a personality. They're all so different. And, so that required a lot of note taking and a lot of keeping track of stuff. And, so not only are you dealing with the life threatening stuff, but all of a sudden now you're like in charge,
Yeah, you are.
which
I
you're
mean,
like,
you're doing research. Like, I mean, I can't even tell you, and yourself, like how many nights
yeah,
you spend doing research, like you're a medical investigator and you're trying to save your kid's life. And it becomes
that's right.
your other full-time job. I mean, there's your job, there's the care of the child. It's all of the going to all the appointments, it's whatever
Right.
procedures are involved. And then it's all the constant research to keep yourself informed. And even if the doctors are competent, sometimes they're not, or sometimes one
Yeah.
disagrees
Yeah.
with another's opinion. And then you're like, well, what the hell are we supposed to do?
Right.
You guys
Right.
can't even agree, and you're the experts.
Right, right. And I think, like I said, there's so much. Seizures are so different with every single person that they really do. They don't fit in a box. I mean, it's not like, oh, you have this disease, you take this medicine. I mean, they're just so, they're just take on a life of their own, and so that's why they rely on you so much. Did you do something before this? Do you see any sign? Did you do, what I mean? Like, how did he seem after that kind of stuff. And then the medicine is just its own shit show, as far as I'm concerned.
Right, the side effects and what
Yeah.
this is going to do, and is it going to make my kid worse? And you feel like you're,
Yeah,
experimenting on your child, and you feel horrible about it. I mean, that's just a
right. And I
whole
remember we had
world.
that conversation. Yeah.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes, because
About
I
it's
think,
almost being child abuse.
right, because you don't know how anything is going to affect the kid. And some of the things you do seem to help. Some of the things you can't tell what the hell's going on. And some of the things actually make things worse. And you
Yep.
just feel such intense guilt as a parent. And it's not
Hmm. Yep.
clear. It's not clear. And I think when you and I met, my son was still acutely going through his stuff. And
Right.
I was sharing all of that, just internal like pain with you. And I think that just really bonded us. I mean, you said that Nate really for 8 years was wildly symptomatic. I mean, there were times he was seizing multiple times a day, if I remember correctly.
I think when the very first time we went in, we were up to 60
60
court
seizures a day.
a day. Hmm. And they didn't even diagnose it. And they're the petite mal, which,
Yes.
they're not the drop seizures, so they're smaller. And he did remain conscious, but it was doing a toll on him. You know what I mean? It was,
Oh, nobody can
yeah,
live a normal life. The child can't, the parents can't. And you
nope.
had an older child as well.
Yep.
You had another
2 years.
kid in the
She's
mix.
almost 3 years. Yeah. Yeah.
3 years
Hmm.
older, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So
Hmm.
when Nate
Yep.
was 2 and his seizures started, she was 5.
Yep. She was still in preschool. So she was just a little under, so she was just in her last year of preschool. So she ended up, because we ended up, he had about 60 when we finally got to this third time we went to the emergency room. And they figured out what it was. They gave him some medicine, but by that point, because seizures run that pattern,
Yeah.
almost like a brain,
Yep.
he had gone through it so many times that his brain just was on a loop and it couldn't stop.
It couldn't
So by
stop.
that point, they just stopped him, and they just basically put him into a medical coma. So,
And how
it
long
was
was he
coming
in the
like,
coma?
almost a month, 3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I know this
ICU.
story, but when I hear it again, I just
Yeah.
hurt for you. And it's just, I know, it's just there are no words, right? For a month to see your kid in that state. You
Yeah.
look at
It was tricky.
the resilience of that child and the resilience of you and Steve and your daughter and your extended family,
Yeah.
whoever was on the scene, right? Supporting
Yeah.
through that. Like, how do you feel like you personally got through it?
Yeah, it was, I mean, we have a great family on both sides. I mean, my parents took Kylie in, my sister was there, she was helping out. Steve's parents were in New Jersey, but they came down and they would be with us. And Steve's job was great. They let him take time off. And we did have a ton of people just totally caring for us, but we were pretty much in ICU for that month, um, and yeah, it was tricky, I mean, I think I dropped, I don't know, 16 pounds. We used to kid, oh, the ICU diet.
Right. Oh my gosh. When he came out of that coma, was that what did it? That stopped the seizures?
So it was just that. And then actually they were trying medicines, and they'd kind of bring him up a little bit and then he would start again. So they would put him back out. So it's kind of like constantly like back and forth, like, we'd pray for this one to work and then all of a sudden it would I still remember this doctor. He was probably like he looked so young. He was probably like 28, and he had this Swedish name. I don't remember it, and he was very handsome. And like you always think of doctors as being like this. I mean, every time he came in to tell us that it didn't work, you could see them tearing up, and and I felt bad for him. I
Yeah.
was like, "We'll find it," you know what I mean? But it
You're
was it
comforting the
was it
doctor.
was tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you knew that he was just hoping that one of these would work. And so then when they finally got one that worked, but we don't even know if it worked because he ended up going another year, almost a year without having a seizure after he came out. And then same thing, about a year later, right back to it,
The
even with that
seizures
medicine
started
on.
again, even with the medicine.
Yep. Yep.
And
So he just used
that's
to go into these secular
you
things.
say, and just like as you said, the brain took on a certain pattern that once this was activated, it was like an alarm bell that was just going off and nothing could
Yep.
stop it. And is that what led ultimately to him having surgery?
Yeah, we couldn't, I mean, there's all sorts of things about medicine, like 60, if you do it for, 60% of, the first time, first medicine can work. Like if you have one medicine, 80% of the time. Anyway, long story short, more medicines you try, which we tried everything, they just stop, they just don't work. You know what I mean?
The chances of them
So,
working go down and down with each one that you try.
correct. So, we ended up, we had a doctor who was kind of aggressive. He was doing some stuff. So he was, they didn't think any of the medicine. So then we ended up going for the first time. At this point, by the time he was going for brain surgery when he was 5, he wasn't going to school. He was on so much Valium. He was like licking the floor, and he almost jumped off our balcony. Like you had to watch him put his fingers in sockets. He was
Oh
like
my
out of
gosh.
control. Yeah. Like basically I just stayed home and I had to watch him all day long. Like you couldn't, it was like having like a toddler that had great fine motor skills. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Wow, because what, he was 11 or 12 by that point? No, he was younger. He was
no,
8, 9.
he was 5. So the
Oh,
first
he
one,
was
he is
5.
kindergarten. So
Okay.
so he missed kindergarten. So that was the first one. And they went in, and basically what they do is they open up your brain, and they leave your brain open, and they put the leads on, and they take off the medicine, and they have you for about a week. They hope for seizures. Now, that was the big concern with Nate because he didn't always have seizures all the time.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, sometimes he would go kind of a long time without seizures. So we weren't sure if we pulled the medicine off, if he would have a seizure, and you only have a week to keep that brain open. You know what I mean? Because it's like it's opened, like the
Good
skull is
grief.
open.
Wow. Yeah. And is he in
So
the
he ended up
hospital the whole
having it.
time in a controlled environment?
Mhm.
Yes. Okay.
Yep. So he ended up having the seizure. They saw where it was coming from. So then they do all the, couple days of testing. What's it functioning? Is it the hands? Is it the language? They kind of test them. It's pretty cool, actually. And then they go in and they scrape off the brain. So we
They
did
scrape
that
off the
kindergarten.
affected parts.
Correct. To helpfully stop that pattern from, now it's kind of like goes a new way. You know what I mean?
So they're locating,
Probably in
yeah.
20,
Yeah. Go ahead.
probably in 20 years, they're going to come back and be like, what the heck were
Right.
people
That was
doing?
barbaric. Right. Scraping off parts of the brain, but it
Right.
worked.
So the first time it worked, it was better. So it was much better. Now, this is the hard one. So he was still having a couple here and there, you know what I mean? But so much better. We didn't have the thing. So they were really confident, about 85%, that if they went in and scraped a little more off, that he might be seizure free. Now, that was a lot harder decision to make because he could function with that, but he wouldn't have been seizure free. You know what I mean? So we talked with him, and he was older, and they don't really like to do it too old because I guess when you have the leads on your brain, I guess you get really kind of freaked out. So anyway, so we had a conversation with him, and we kind of made the final decision. We didn't put it up to him because I felt like that was too much pressure for
Right.
a little kid. But I explained what it was and why we were thinking of doing it, and what the doctors had thought, and we thought it would be a good thing. You know what I mean? So that one was a lot harder, just because it wasn't something that he had to have, and he was older, so he was nervous about it. You know what I mean?
Would you
Where
place him at
when he was
around like
5,
age 9 or something like
so
that?
he had it this in the spring of his so he must have been, because he went to 4th grade after the surgery, so he would have been
About
10, so he was about
10.
9. Yeah.
And that
So
surgery, was that the one that really was successful fully?
it totally, yeah, he hasn't had a seizure since then.
Wow.
and we got to wean off all the medicine, which was a big thing. The medicine slows him down and
Right.
slows down your thinking, and your whole life is controlled by it. Like now you have to be, there's, oh, you have to have vitamin, I have to have medicine, I have to have, so yeah, so I mean, he's been great. I mean, certainly there's residuals mentally from that. I mean, he functions well. He does well for himself, but yeah, there's definitely some areas, money and math symbolizing that kind of thing is, and who knows if he would have had it anyway, we don't
Right,
know.
right. It's so hard to say. Is that a result of the surgery? Were those sort of learning
Right. Or
challenges
the
there all
seizures
along,
or
or the seizures did so much damage to the brain, or for certain, and I certainly experienced this with my son, when you are, we all can relate to when we're ill and we're ill in childhood, you lose big chunks of development, right? And then you're
yep,
making up for that, right? You're making up for
yep.
that down the line if you can. So you're doing things
Hmm.
maybe when you're 12 that other people were mastering when they were 5, right?
Right, right, right. Definitely.
But it's
Yeah.
amazing. Like I mean, Nate's amazing. He's an amazing kid.
He
And
is.
he is. Isn't he such a bright spirit? And it's amazing. And he drives and he works and he's sweet as
Yep.
pie. And it's just the resilience of these kids.
Yeah, the determination, and really with school, I mean, he had a lot of, he always had the one-on-one and always trying to catch him up and the extra work and, the summer school and, but he worked hard. He's very persistent and he's very determined. And, it's funny. He's always had a really great vocabulary, I think because really when we stayed home, like what else do you do? Like we're not going to sit there and read. He couldn't watch TV. He never liked TV. So we would just read constantly
Oh, wow.
all the time. Read, 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 read. But his vocabulary is off the charts. You know what I mean? And that's always been his strength. And for his strength, that's a good one. Like that really helps you communicate with the world,
Right.
and science, love science.
When he was going through all that and the whole family was going through all that for so many years, I'm just imagining the challenge in making sure that your daughter was getting what she needed at the same time as like the healthy child, and what a
Yep.
challenge that must have been for you and Steve to make sure like she was getting what she needed while her brother was sort of in and out of crisis.
Yeah. Hmm. And it's funny too, because, her perspective, like except for that one bout with ICU where we were there for about a month and we really, both of us were there, we always alternated. So someone would be home with her and we'd go, except like, maybe surgeries and things like whatever, that kind of stuff. But we always alternated. So someone was home with her but she doesn't remember it like that. And I'm like, you know what? That's her perspective. You know what I mean? And she has a right to it. Like in her mind, she lived at my mom's house. But even
Right.
though that's not really,
Do you think is
but
she
I'm like, you know
resentful
what?
about that, or is she, because she's so sweet to her
I think
brother?
yeah, they do. They're really tight and they're really close. I think it's more of the like the war mentality, like I went through this and this is
Yeah.
what it felt like, you know what I mean? And in some ways, I always said when he was in the hospital and one of us was home or one of us there, no matter where you were, you wanted to be wherever you weren't.
Right.
That was the hardest thing, if you couldn't wait to go home, but then as soon as you got home, you just wanted to be up at the hospital. But as soon
Right.
as you were in the hospital, you just wanted to be home. It was like you were
Yes.
never happy in either spot. You were
I
always like,
remember that
oh,
myself. I remember that
yeah,
myself. You
uh-huh,
are constantly divided internally as a parent.
yeah,
You have a kid in the hospital. It's, yeah.
yeah.
And you go into parenting always hoping for the best. And, you know,
Assuming. I don't think I ever
assuming.
thought ever that I'd have that ever.
Over It is proudly sponsored by the Couples Center of the Pioneer Valley, offering specialized services to couples and individuals with relationship issues and concerns. Check them out on the web at pioneervalleycouplestherapy.com or call them at 413-570-0067.
You know?
Majority of marriages do not survive having a child who's ill for so long.
Yeah.
How, from your perspective, did you and Steve do it? How did you hang in there?
I would say we were lucky. Whenever one was up, the other was down. You know what I mean? So it was like we were constantly playing this game, if he was really down, I was up and like, come on, we can, we're going to get through this. So that always helped it was never that we were both down, like we always kind of rallied for the other. And then humor. I mean, you can't keep up with this stuff and not laugh about it. Like I can remember certain things that probably if somebody else looked at us, they'd be like, "Oh my, what is wrong with you?" But you had to laugh. You couldn't say, I mean, calling up and being like, "Yeah, I have, pee all over me and, this and, that, you had to laugh. You couldn't not make jokes about it. You know what I mean? You had to laugh about it,
Right.
that and then family. I mean, we were blessed, to have so much family that helped us out, um, you know, he is my best friend, and I can't imagine going through it without him. And in some ways, going through it made me love him even more. That
Right.
he, did so much to help us and to help our family and to support us, and you know what I mean. And so, I mean, I don't know. I know we're lucky. I know we are because I could see it ripping you apart. I mean, at some point, I mean, it's a reminder every time you go into one of those situations that, oh, God, why can't you say that? Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's just so much emotion. So we're lucky that it brought us closer rather than further apart. I don't really have any other reason for that than I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I can totally see it happening.
Right.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
I mean, parenthood fundamentally changes us, but how do you feel like this particular journey with Nate really changed you as a woman?
Yeah. I really think it opened my heart. Like everybody's going through something. Never ever look at somebody and say, "Oh, look at they have it all together. They don't have anything to worry about." Like everybody has something, and they're
Right.
all, either they've just got over something, or they're gonna have something, or like everybody, just open your heart. And I mean, being at the hospital too, I mean, I would look at some of these parents with what they're dealing with, and I'd be like, oh my God, thank God that's not me. You know what I mean? Like you'd see some of these kids, and your heart, you're like, "Ah, and we're blessed to be dealing with this and not something even worse, you
What a
know?
perspective that is. I know there were times I remember thinking we might be here, but those people probably aren't leaving with their kid, you
I
know?
know, I know. Or, like some in the wheelchair or, the breathing problems. I mean,
Yes,
the feeding tubes or the cancer. I mean, it's just heartbreaking to
it
walk
is.
through a hospital like that.
But you're right. I
It
mean, it
really
really
is.
breaks you. It has the potential to break you wide open to the point of just it's beyond humility. It really it creates potentially just an endless spring of love and compassion
Mhm.
within you. And I remember
Yeah.
like a mantra through many years when my son was not feeling well or doing well, saying to him exactly, it might seem like everybody around you is doing just fine, but I guarantee you, just what you said,
Yep.
everybody's got something. It might not
Yep.
be your something, it's their something. But
That's
everybody's
right.
got something. And it's hard to both be real with a child who's going through something very real and also not, paint life and the world as just a place where just bad things happen all the time. it's like a balancing act, right? To be able to like,
Right,
yeah,
right.
you're going through the shit. You've been going through the shit for a long time. That one's going through the shit in a different way, and that one is too. But it's not all shit, and it won't always be shit. And life is more than just suffering, even though it doesn't feel like that sometimes.
Right. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
There is just something
Yeah.
about the nature of suffering. And when a child, and vicariously through your child, you have a relationship to suffering that is
Yeah.
profound. And
hmm
it alters you to the core.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It breaks your heart, really does. I mean, to see them so at the mercy, it's like, you know, but I mean, there's always things to look around and feel blessed for, like the doctors, that they can do this, that there's hope, what I mean? There's always that stuff. And then sometimes, your kid just wants to be like, no, this fucking sucks.
Right. And
And you
let's
have
name
to
it.
let them have that too. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
And yourself as
yeah, you're
well.
right.
Yourself as well. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a grieving process
Yep.
as a parent when you're going through that, to say like, yeah, this isn't what I signed up for, so to speak. I didn't think
Yeah,
it was going
right.
to be my lot in life. And we're also missing out on life. We wouldn't be anywhere
Yeah.
else but by this kid's side. But, this is not fun. It's not good for anybody.
I know, and I always love it. People be like, "I don't know how you did it," and I'm
Know
like,
how you did
"Okay,
it.
what's
You're
the
so
alternative?"
strong.
Okay,
You're so strong. You'll get through it because
okay, all
you're so
right,
strong.
right. Like, what's the alternative? Walk out the door and move to California and leave them?
I
Like, what's
know.
your
I
alternative?
have felt the same way. I felt like if one more person tells me I'm so strong, I mean, right, what are the options here? I mean, I guess there are always options. I could curl up in the fetal position and smoke crack, but
Right.
it didn't seem like that was my viable option. Um, it crossed my mind, but yeah, I mean, is it about being strong? I don't know. Like,
I don't think so, because there's really no choice. You know what I mean? Your kid's going through this, and you got to go through it too. And the only way to get through it is to go through it.
right.
You can't stop in the middle. You
And you
know,
never know what the
so
middle is or where the end is, or if there be an end, right?
so true.
Both
Uh-huh.
of our
Yeah.
journeys took about 8.5 years, really.
hmm
And when you're going through that year after year, different iterations of it, and it's confusing and it's complicated and it's hard to figure out. And it doesn't seem like it's ever going to end, but
Yeah. Right.
it has.
It does. I never believed that. I swear I had a habit of just, I read a lot of scripture when we were going through this. I should have said my faith too. Read a lot of scripture, and I had a Pastor Rebecca, who was just the dream. I mean, she was just such a great vessel for me. And so I read a lot of scripture, and she kept saying, "You'll get to the other side," and there'll be scriptures about getting to the other side, and I'd be like, I don't see how. There's just no way to get to the other
Right,
side. Like
right.
there just didn't feel like a way that we were ever going to get there. And I still think of it that now I look back and I'm like, God, we got to another side. I can't believe it.
Right.
I
But it
never thought
wasn't
it would
quick.
happen.
It wasn't quick. It wasn't
No,
simple. It wasn't easy.
mm-mm,
It wasn't straightforward,
no,
but you
nope.
got to the other side.
We did.
So
Yep.
I'm glad you mentioned your faith as well
hmm
as a
Yep.
key component. And is that something, I don't even know this, is that something that you and Steve share? Or is that more
Um,
yours?
it's kind of more mine. He grew up very religious. His parents are very religious, or, faith-based and, that kind of thing. And we once the kids were little, we did start going to church together before he was sick and stuff like that. And we found this church, and we went, and, but, they really brought that the faith. I had one scripture, like you said, that was my mantra: "Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord God will be with you wherever you go." And that kind of was like because I was afraid. Like, I mean, there was times I just didn't want to look. I didn't want to see. I didn't want to know. I just wanted to be done.
Yes.
So that knowing that he was going to be with me, and there's nothing I could do. My hands were open. Like you have no control. So what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Like there's nothing you can do. So having that kind of feeling like it's not in my control, and I'm just going to trust and believe that things are going to work out the way they're supposed to, and this is all going to somehow move forward to whatever it's going to be. You know what I mean? And that really too, I mean, it was, I had to really let go control. I had none. You know what I mean? I had no way to change anything. So I had to kind of
Right.
acknowledge that and just let it
You
be.
lose the illusion that we have any control.
That's right.
Yeah.
Not that we do anyway, but
Right. We all, with some of us can live with the illusion that we do. But when you're in a situation
that's right.
like that, there is the acknowledgement that I really can't really do anything. I can try to manipulate
Nothing.
variables. There's nothing I can do. When he was finally seizure free and you
Yeah.
had an opportunity to start to get that in your rear view mirror, I imagine that was probably a transitional time for you. Like, what do I do with myself now? Was that a time where you had to take stock on an individual level of like, what do I do with my
I
work,
guess so.
my
Yeah.
career?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, I had gotten my master's in education and always thought that I would teach. But then, and of course, once you get through without the seizures, you know, it's not like, oh, it's all done. We're never going to have another doctor's appointment. I mean, there's a lots that still go into it. Plus the extra care for, school and volunteering, so I just didn't feel like I had that ability to go back to teaching. When you teach, you're in that classroom and that's your job. You have to be there those hours, you know what I
yeah,
mean? And I felt like I needed more flexibility. And so I ended up getting my real estate license and working for my dad because he did real estate. He did cottage colonies. So
that's how you got
so
into
I
it.
ended up, yeah, and my brother-in-law. So we kind of worked together and, it gave me flexibility. Real estate, I mean, you're on all the time. You got to answer your phone and do emails and all that kind of stuff, but you have a lot of flexibility, you might have a couple hours in the day, both kids school choiced. So that left me, and then I still coach gymnastics at night. So that left me a lot of flexibility to kind of manipulate my life so that I could, get to him to speech and get him to Orleans Elementary, which was far away, to
Right.
get him
All the
extra,
extra
you know what I
services,
mean?
right? That also
That's
takes
right.
time. You're constantly schlepping the kid from place to place. And,
That's right.
yeah. I mean, what's been your favorite thing about your real estate career?
I really love helping people. I mean, when you go into somebody's house or when you go to buy somebody something, it's a dream in their life. You know what I mean? This is their dream. Either they have somewhere that they want to go or a situation where they need to get it off their shoulders and move on to something else. So you are like, you become very close. So during that transaction, I mean, you possibly could talk to that person maybe 3 or 4 times a day. Like you could talk a lot. Like you're very close. You're in it with them, and they feel that. And by the end of it, I mean, even if it's a bad situation, there's a divorce, or the mother died, or what. By the time they get through the whole transaction, because it's stressful. I mean, it's big. um, I always think that they feel so much better. Either that, the pressure's off, or they needed that money to do something else for their mom, or they needed to, get this divorce and move on with their lives. And, or they need to buy that dream house for the beach so the kids can come and the grandkids can come and start those memories. I mean, it's a big dream for people with real estate. It's not just, I mean, some it's an investment and it's just a house and it's going to make them money, but even that is something that they're going to do with that money
Right.
to create that. So that's what I love about it.
I love hearing about it. And I often thought, there has to be a fair amount of psychology that goes into
Mhm.
being a good realtor, right? I mean, I'm a
Yep.
psychologist, and I often thought, I bet I'd be pretty okay at being a realtor. I think that I
Yes, you
really
would.
understand people and what motivates them. I mean, do you feel that that's true? Do you find yourself, yeah,
Yes. Yes. And you know what, even too, from the moment you walk in there, like for me, when I go onto a listing appointment, they're thinking of selling the house. My first question is not, oh, this is what you could sell your house for, is what is your goal? What is your end? What would be the dream process? If everything worked out just the way you wanted, how would that work out? What would it look like? You know what
mm,
I mean? Because you got to get them from A to B, and it has to be what they are thinking, not what you think. You know what I mean? Like some people don't want all the money in the world. They just want it simple and easy.
right?
So don't try to get them top dollar. Try to get them so that, that the next person that comes in there, it's just simple. They don't want anything from you. They just want to be done with it. You know what I mean? You have to really listen, and I'm sure you do for your job too. Really listen to what they're saying.
I like that you're talking about process. It's not just that end goal, but how do you aspire to be along that process, along that journey? What elements are going to
Yep.
really make this feel like a successful process for you? I mean, I love that. And I think that's got to be somewhat unique to you. You're not all about bottom line or your bottom line. You're really invested in understanding from your client's perspective what it is that they're wanting and needing. And that's beautiful. I think that's what makes you so good at what
Oh,
you
thanks.
do. Yeah.
It does. And I feel like I mean, I really never had a bad client. I
Wow.
really, I mean, I've had some people that were kooky that, needed some guidance, but their motivation or their behind the scene, it wasn't jerky, or you know what I mean? So I think kind of getting to the point where you're speaking their language, so they're getting what they need, kind of helps to alleviate those disagreements or feeling like they're not getting what they need, and now they're upset, and why is this not working, and that kind of stuff. Because I'm telling you, it is a very overwhelming process. I mean, you're
Well,
packing up your stuff, or you're like, it's a lot.
we know, like on the life stress index, buying a house is one of the top stressors actually in life that
Yeah.
and what you're dealing with people around some of their top triggers, right? Especially if, even if it's just one person, we're talking about money. We're talking about what home represents and symbolizes, right?
Yep.
We're talking about potentially class issues. If it's a couple, right? We're talking about all that stuff and to what extent they agree or disagree on all of those spheres, right?
Yep. Hmm.
So complicated. Not to mention aesthetics, like what people's preferences are in terms of design.
And what goes into it. I mean, you have a buyer, you have two lawyers, you have a bank, you have septic, you have town issues, you have another realtor, there's just layers on top of layers of all these things that kind of have to come together in order for a successful close. So it's just, I mean, people think, oh, you just pick up a check, you sell a house, pick up a check.
It is
I'm
so
like, okay, wait a
complicated.
minute.
And nobody teaches us how to do it. And nobody, if you've had the privilege of purchasing a home, it's a
Yeah,
grueling process that again, until you go through it, you don't know from step to step what's going to happen next if it's your first time. It feels like it's never
yeah,
going to end. Often deals can fall through and it's heartbreaking. It's easy to get your heart
right.
set on things and have them fall through. And you as the realtor, if you're good at your job, you're there in a way holding those people through the
Yeah.
ups and
Hmm.
downs of that process, right? You're doing a lot of emotional caretaking for
Yeah.
people.
Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. It's true. And I forget what the statistic, and I should probably know this by heart, but I mean, one of your biggest wealth builders is buying a house. So you want everyone to do it because it is one of the biggest, if they can do it, it's just one of the biggest best things you can do financially for yourself. You know what I mean? It's not always feasible, but I find, people who really work hard at it, they can get it. And it's such a blessing. You know what I mean? It is such a blessing to
It's
those
one of the
families,
key things that can lift a family out of potentially intergenerational poverty, right? Is home ownership. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, what kind of resources are out there for folks who are first time? I know there are resources for first time buyers. Like, what would you
Yeah.
point people to?
There's a few classes they have, and they're free of charge. And actually, you get a better interest rate if you take it. So, first time home buyer class, and they kind of
First time
walk you
home
through it
buyers
all.
class. Okay.
Yeah. And they have them on Zoom now, too. So, you don't even have to take that time to, be at a place or anything like that. They talk you through it all. I always say to go to a lender. A lot of times they really know how to talk to you about finances and looking at your credit and saying, okay, like people think, oh, I got to find the house first, then I'm going to go talk to somebody at the bank. Go to the bank first, kind of let them look at your stuff, and then they could say, okay, you know what, get down this credit card, do this, try to put this aside, get rid of this. Then you kind of have like a plan, like, okay, here's this, and then I can be, afford this much, you know what I mean? And they're really great. I mean, we've had, I mean, they have open hearts too. We get a bad rap. I think we're like below, I mean, I think we're ahead of sex workers and used car salesmen as
In
far
terms of
as
reputation,
sleaziness.
in terms of
As far as
reputation.
sleaziness.
Yeah, realtors overall have terrible, like the industry has a terrible
I
reputation.
know.
And we're not saying there's anything wrong with being a sex worker, by the way. We're just saying that there are
No,
certain
I'm just saying,
industries,
like,
right, that are
right,
not
that
well
you know,
respected, and realty is one of them.
right,
There are some
right.
cruddy
And I'm
realtors,
like,
but there's also cruddy doctors and cruddy everything else.
I know. And to be honest, I mean, I don't know if it's just Cape Cod or just the people I come in contact with. Very few realtors don't have open hearts. I mean, they're out there trying to change this world, and same with my lenders. I mean, they're really trying to make this happen for people, and I mean, yeah, we don't get paid unless we get a house or do a sale or whatever, but we do a heck of a lot of stuff that we get nothing for. And we do it because we care for our clients and we want the best for them.
Right.
If you're enjoying Over It, make sure you follow us on Spotify, Amazon Music, or Apple Music.
Right. I mean, speaking of
So,
that, how have you managed work-life balance, and now your kids are, well, they're grown, but they're
yeah,
always hovering. I mean,
yes.
yeah, have you managed it? Because as a realtor, like in the years of raising the kids, I mean,
Yeah.
you're on call, you're constantly schlepping people around and looking at properties. Like, how have you managed that and stayed married?
Yeah. So at first, when I first started, I mean, mostly when I first started working for my dad, I really just did open houses with him and helped him out with his cottage colonies and stuff like that. So it's like he basically owned the real estate and I just kind of helped manage it with him, like as far as selling or, getting his places ready. But once I did kind of go to more traditional real estate, it took a little bit. Like Steve was very pissy when I would just pick up the phone because
Yeah.
a lot of times it's much easier just to answer the phone right away and give an answer than it is to have to call 5 calls back. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it's just easier. Oh, okay. Yep. No problem. Got it. So at first he was like that. And then, he said, like I'll be home in an hour. And then of course, people talk. You're there. You got to talk to them. They need you. This is the most stressful time in their lives. You're not just going to be like, I got to get home. Sorry. Like they're like crying at you. And, so anyway, so he now lets me pick up the phone pretty much whenever. He's good about it. And he adds 2 hours to whatever I say I'm going to be home.
It adds 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Also useful when you're at the thrift store. You took
Yes.
one or two of your favorite thrift stores on the Cape, which was awesome.
Yes. I love thrift
Yeah.
stores. The
Yeah.
best
So I love that
sustainable,
he's
right?
created an accommodation for you. That's really great.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, so for you, I guess just switching gears a little bit, I mean, what is your experience just of getting older as a woman? I mean, you're someone you've always been an athlete. You still take excellent care of yourself. what are your thoughts and feelings about aging?
Yeah, it's tough.
What's tough for you about
It
it?
is.
Yeah.
I have a little less patience with some things that I'm just like, I don't know about you, and I
Do you
don't
mean
know
you're
about your
over it, Kim?
viewers.
Do you mean you're over it?
Yes, over. I still just cannot believe that in this day and age that they did this whole thing of Roe versus Wade. I mean, I just can't believe this is medical. I don't know why we're even having this conversation. Like, I don't understand. Like that kind of stuff makes me mad. Like I want to be able to do what I want with my own body. Like that makes me mad. I just can't. I don't know. It really. I didn't realize it would. They had talked about it, and but when it I mean, that really threw me for a loop. I was like, oh my gosh, I
So
just can't believe it.
you do think that that hit you harder at the age that we are now than it would have even when
Yes,
you were a reproductive age? Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Just because I'm like, you know what? Am I like a baby? Like I can't like, and I know so many women who like we had play groups and we always had, lots of people in and out of our play groups. I mean, we had a lot of women that came in and out of our lives, and, I can't believe, I mean, I can't tell you how many people had to have DNCs because of something wrong with the baby that they really wanted, like
Yeah.
that whole thing is just, I just can't believe that it's a political issue. I just can't believe it. It just makes me so mad. It really does. It just feels like it's like way over. And I feel like, seriously, if it was a man, it would never happen. Never happen. If it was a man, it would never happen. They
Yeah.
would never, I don't think it would be an issue,
So
you
this
know?
sense of outrage that
Um,
you feel, this growing sense of outrage that you feel is sort of connected to this sense of, I wonder, you didn't say this word, and maybe this is my word, but almost like a sense
yeah,
of betrayal. Like here I am, a hardworking person,
grown
a
woman who
grown
make my
woman
decisions.
who makes my own decisions
Who
and
runs a household, who
who
runs things,
contributes
who
to
can make a good
society.
decision.
And you
Yeah,
have a
like they can
daughter.
make a good decision.
You have a daughter
Yeah,
who's of childbearing age and thinking about her life and her future and
right.
right.
And she said to me, well, for me, I don't know if I could ever do something like that, which I'm like, okay. But my thing is, if something's going wrong with her and that's something that's going to save her life, what are we talking about here? You know what I mean? Why are we discussing this? And why do we have to get permission? And why, like, what? This is medical. Why are we even discussing this? Anyway, that one makes me really mad.
Yes. And you started out by saying, there's aspects of getting old that suck or are tough. And then you talked about that there's this growing thing of, things can really piss you off now in a way that maybe they
Yeah,
didn't before. Are there
right.
aspects of getting older that feel like gifts? Are there aspects of getting older like,
I mean,
yeah,
right.
yeah,
How can we not be blessed to live 53 years? Like I'm 53. I'm feel blessed that I had 53 years to live, that I am healthy, that I could still do things, that I still am happy and joyful in my life. I mean, that is a blessing. Every year is a birthday that at first you're like, oh my, I can't believe I'm 53. But then the other hand, you're saying, oh my God, I can't believe I turned 53. I mean,
like we say,
can
what's the
happen.
alternative?
And I am going to fight it all the way. I'm like, watching my dad, who, take the best care of himself. I'm like, I'm going to exercise. I'm going to do this. I'm going to, like just to
Yeah,
try to fight it,
yeah.
So.
I mean, do you have any feelings about menopause?
So this is interesting because I was having a lot of iron issues because my period was so heavy. like really heavy, like couldn't even, like, days that I had it, the first few days, I mean, I could barely even work because I just, it was so heavy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they ended up wanting to give me iron transfusions. Now, here again, makes me so mad. They wanted to give me iron transfusions. Not one person said, oh, you just do ablation and we just they laser off your uterus lining and then you won't get your period anymore. Yes, you can't get pregnant, but I don't need to get any more kids, but nobody said that to me. My
And
doctor
how
wanted to
old
give
were
me,
you around this time? Roughly, how old were you?
I would say probably about 48.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it had been going on forever. Like they kept saying, oh, your iron's low. We've been checking it, checking it, checking it. They wanted to give me transfusions. I was like, no, I'll take iron, which is gross. Iron pills are gross. But never once. So when I went to my gynecologist, because you go only 3 years nowadays. So he's like, we could just do ablation. I'm like, oh, what? You know what I mean? Like it was in and out one day, a little cramping, and it's gone. Like I have my
So
period no more.
that was it. You went into instant menopause. And so
Well, you still technically get your period. Like, so you just don't have any signs of it, but you can kind of tell, like you still will be you can still get like the moods and that kind of stuff. So I don't really know when I'm having it, but I can kind of tell a little
but
bit.
you don't bleed at all after that.
No.
Wow.
You
No,
can.
yeah.
Some people do. Yeah, but
You
no.
didn't.
Mm-mm,
And so did
no.
that come as a relief?
Yes. I mean, I was taking off like a week of the gym every month just because I couldn't go. I mean, I couldn't wear a tampon. I had to wear a pad because it was so heavy. At one point I was at a home inspection. I thought it was over. I'm like, got my shirt wrapped around my waist. I felt like a 12-year-old. I was like, ugh, this is just terrible.
I
You know
think
what I mean?
I've talked to so many women that tell me stories like this, where it's like, I'm bleeding profusely, or, some other reproductive health issue, and nobody's taking it seriously. And it's like they're just kicking the can down the road. This poor woman is literally bleeding to death. And
Right.
everyone's
And they're talking
like,
about
this is
giving me
so,
iron for the symptom
yeah.
instead of just treating it. But again, this goes back to my thought of like, if it was a man dealing with this, they would have come up with something and they would have taken it seriously and be like, oh, this is what you need to do. And here I am at my doctor's office being like, well, can I justify this with my insurance? And and he said, well, we'll tell you it's impacting your life. And
You
I'm like,
think that
it
bleeding to death
is.
might be impacting your life? It is like, it's funny and not funny all at once.
It is.
The women are treated as second-class citizens within the healthcare system.
Yep.
Our issues are not taken seriously. There is an assumption and an expectation that we will just suffer and that it's our
Right.
lot to suffer. Yeah, can you imagine if a man was bleeding out of his penis for days on end
Right.
and they were like,
And
let's
they
just
would
give you
just
some
be like,
iron.
just give you some iron and see if it, you can each month you could just take a little more, like ridiculous. It would never happen. It would never happen, you know?
It is so gnarly out there. So gnarly.
Mhm. Yeah. So here's my other thought when you were saying it's over it. I started thinking about it a lot and it kind of came to me in yoga. And it's kind of like polar opposites because I was like, this issue about abortion really, or women's health care really gets me mad. But then on the other hand, it's like this world needs to just stop being so serious. We need to find some joy. Like, stop. Everything is so, you know what I mean? So but it's collective. So, it's like that battle that that we just need to relax, open our hearts, have some joy, have some fun. You know what I mean?
Right. It is both. It's knowing where and when to fight. Where are you willing to die on your
Yep.
sword? And also, how do you hold life a little bit more lightly and with some joy and gratitude? And it's both. you know, it's both. And I don't know what the heck we do about the healthcare system and women's
I don't either.
reproductive health rights, and just trying to be taken seriously sometimes within this
Yep.
healthcare system. It's just
Yeah.
absolutely outrageous.
And then if you're a woman of color, forget about it. It's
Forget about
even
it.
10 times worse. You
Forget
know,
about
it's
it.
scary. It's really scary.
And people
Yeah.
die, you know, that's the
Yeah.
outcome, is women die, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I'm thankful that you're willing to share on such an open and vulnerable level about all of
Mhm.
that. You know, what does it mean to you to be over it?
It just makes me like, well, because we have family, like I said, my in-laws are quite religious, and I know we have very, very different views, you know what I mean? But I will refuse to keep silent.
Yeah.
That's really what it means. Like, I'm not going to just sit here and say, you know, I think when I was younger, I would laugh stuff off or not comment and just kind of leave the room and just kind of let it, you know what I mean? I'm not going to say anything. I don't want to create any waves. I'm done with that. We've had a few conversations. I said to my husband, I'm 53 years old. I'm not going to just sit here and pretend like this is fine for me when it's not. This is not how I feel, So, I mean, I still love them. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that that's okay for me, or okay for what you're saying, because that's affecting people's lives.
So this is that part of growing older where something has kicked in for you, where you're saying, I'm going to speak my mind. I'm going to give my opinion. And if I don't
That's right.
believe in something, or I do, I'm going to use my voice, and, you know, I'm not going to be silent.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think, I mean, it's a beauty of aging that we kind of get to a point where we're like, sorry, I'm not getting in a little box for you anymore and looking cute. You know what I mean? That's not where I'm at. And I'm not going to pretend I am. So, um, and again, I mean, Steve's always been he doesn't get mad. I mean, he gets, he's like, you say it, you do it. Yeah, go ahead. I mean,
So he's
so
egging you
that
on.
always too
Yeah.
makes it,
Yeah. I
so
love
that
that.
makes it better.
What do
It
you
makes it easier, I guess.
Yeah. What do you see for yourself moving into your late 50s and your 60s? What do you envision for yourself? What do you want for you?
Ye I don't know. We're still trying to figure that out. Like I think about retirement and things like that. And, do we want to travel? And I mean, we're not talking deep here. These are just fluffy stuff. Do
Oh,
we
but
want to
this
like
is the
have a
point.
RV, or do we want to have a second home, or do we want to like, you know, rent a bunch of places all over the place, and we've tried a few things. Our friends of ours had like a second home, and we went there and we said, I don't want to just go to one place. We decided that we didn't want just one place away. But we do have my mom, so that'll be
Yes,
hopefully she'll live for many, many years.
your
Yeah,
mom
yeah,
who
yeah.
she moved onto your property, but
Yep,
you built an addition onto your house. And
yep,
there's
yep.
your mom, and she has her little garden. And yeah, so your mom's there. I guess
Yep.
I want to hear about one thing you want just for you. Is there an
Ah,
aspiration you have just for you? I mean, yeah,
the
Steve can
only
go
thing I
on,
could,
but yeah.
yeah, the only thing that I really so you talked about, I used to do gymnastics a lot. I trained hard. I mean, we did 5, 6 days a week, 3 or 4 hours a day, probably from the time I was 7 till, all the way through college. I mean, we always were training. And I, I've kind of found the gym back, and I really enjoy working out. Like it's my Zen place. I don't want people to talk to me. And a neat thing is I always had a coach who would say, do 5 more, do 10, do 25, 50, 50, blah, 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 do whatever he tells you to do. Most of them were he's. And now it's me telling me what to do. And I really like it.
That's awesome. Like you're your own coach.
Yes. and I really enjoy it. And I really do at some point would love to have it. I'm selfish right now. Like it's all for me. Like I don't want to share it, but I do eventually see myself sharing it with some people that I find special that will be like my kind of crew that comes with me, if they want.
Some other
But
women you're thinking you might invite
yeah,
along?
yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Cool.
But for right now, it's still just all mine and selfish. But
You
I'm
know,
hoping
I always get
eventually I
on
want
women
to
when they
share it.
say when women say selfish, I always have to say something because it's
Well,
so self-loving to have something that's just for you, right? And
it
everybody
is
benefits in your life when you come home. Look at you, you're glowing.
totally.
You really are glowing.
Yep.
I mean, everybody benefits from it. I think that a woman giving to herself is the key to life. I said it.
Yep.
I think a
Yep.
woman giving to herself is the key to life. It is not selfish. It is the key.
It is.
It is the
Yeah, it's
key.
true. I mean, I didn't mean it like selfish as in, but I do feel myself, I know in my heart of hearts that it's something I should give back on. Like I do know it. Like I
Okay, this
know
is something you
women
want
need
to
this.
hear, and women need this from another
Women need
woman.
this
Yeah.
from
Okay.
another woman.
Okay.
Yeah.
I accept that
Yeah.
answer. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
But I will use a different word because it's not selfish. You're right. It's totally and utterly great for me
Yes.
and for my love and for my heart and for my house and for my family. So yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I wish we
So
lived
that's it.
closer. Yeah, because I might have to hone in on some of your good coaching. I feel like I need a good coach right now in the gym. I don't go to the gym, but if I did go to the gym, I would definitely need a coach. But that is to
Yes,
say,
yes.
I wish we lived closer, but I'm so glad that you're in my life, and I'm
Me
just
too.
so grateful that you took the time to be on the podcast today and like share
Yeah.
your really beautiful journey. And I always like to end with a question like this.
Uh-huh.
If you could go back in time
Hmm.
to the most grueling time in your life, what would you tell yourself?
Most grueling time. I really know that one. Um, I guess just what I've learned. You're going to get to the other side. Like, I feel like that so many people need to hear that, because when you're in it, it never feels like you're going to get there. It really doesn't. Like, people are like, oh, people will tell you that, but you just can't see it. You just can't see it. And you don't see how anything can change. And I think that's why we have so much heartache and suicide. And because when you're in it, you can't see it. You just can't see it. But it does, so just believe it. It will happen some way you'll get to that other side. And it's going to be different, but it's going to happen.
And no one gets through it alone. I mean, that's
No.
and the more that we keep this stuff to ourselves because of shame or a sense of alone, nobody would understand. The more we keep ourselves in a box. So I think the key
Hmm.
there is just let somebody know how hard it
Yeah.
is.
Right.
Don't be afraid
Right.
to say this is really hard. And I think it's so important for women to like let that mask slip. And if somebody says,
Yeah.
you got this, say thanks, but honestly, right now, I don't feel like I do. And maybe for a little
Can
bit,
you
I
tell me
don't
why I
want
got
to.
this?
Yeah, why, and I don't want to have it right now. Maybe you could have it for
Right.
a while. Like, I
Right.
don't want
Right.
this, but
Right.
yeah, well, I mean, Kim, I love you. And thank you
I
so
love
much
you too.
for joining Over It, and to all of our Over It sisters and brothers, and however you identify out there. Thank you so much for being part of the podcast. We love you.
Love you.
Mwah.
The April in your soul, tears falling like the raindrops through the sound, colors reflection in your eyes. The April in your heart blossoms of the flowers of all kinds. I love them all, I love them all. Spring is in your love, spring is in your eyes, spring is in your heart. I want to live in, and the April of your soul, dark clouds of the winter. Your soul, tears falling like the raindrops through the sound, colors reflection in your eyes. The April in your heart, blossoms of the flowers of all kinds. I love